first of all, thank you for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
chatting, and I want to see how you are doing and your family first off with all this. And
We're lucky. So far, so good. No impacts on our family. We got two kids at Georgia Tech, and they're both at home. And well, one of them actually moved out to his girlfriend's house and her family out in Woodstock last weekend. After a month of not seeing his girlfriend, I could understand that. They all did their quarantining so he could safely go out there. So he's been there about a week. But other than that, four kids at home, wife working at home, and I come into the brewery, I think, which everybody's happy that I'm not there for about 8 or 9 hours a day.
so, if you could just give a background of your brewery and how it started and what's behind it up till March 13th or whatever, when everything kind of all went
Going all the way
crazy.
back.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's actually funny. This year will be our 10th year in business. We celebrate our 10th anniversary this September. And, about 5 or 6 years ago, we opened up the brewery that I'm in right now here in Avondale Estates, Georgia. And this has been a wonderful home for us. And we have a tap room here, which I'm sitting in. And I'll tell you about the change in that since March 13th in a minute. And then last year, we opened up a second location in Atlanta's West End neighborhood that has an event space, restaurant, experimental brewery, huge patio overlooking the Beltline. And, the last few years, we've kind of just been cranking along in an increasingly competitive craft beer market. And then this hit and upended so much of our business in such a dramatic way. But there's been some bright spots. We've been lucky in some ways.
So we'll go into maybe those bright spots, but talk about the dramatic shift from that point. Like, how many employees do you have currently? What are their status and going forward?
Yeah, when all this hit, we understood the impacts pretty quickly, because once restaurants and bars went away and events went away, those drive huge portions of our business. And so there wasn't let's scale down. No, it's like these are getting turned off. So, a very vivid example of that is we haven't filled a keg in probably 6 weeks, because no one orders kegs right now, because no one pours pints right now, because that happens at bars and restaurants. And so, it's like we used to be in the business of making kegs of beer, but we don't do that right now. We don't do that at all. So that's crazy. We have a lot of private events at our spaces. It's a big revenue source for us, and that's basically zeroed out right now. Our tap room in the West End, which is a huge gathering space, that's down a lot, although it's actually doing reasonably well given the circumstances. And then our Avondale tap room is actually doing really, really well, like up 5 times, because this is the core of where people are now coming to pick up beer to go. And there's been a tremendous outpouring of support for local breweries like us. So people are coming and buying beer directly at the source in unprecedented numbers, at least for us. I assume other breweries are experiencing similar reaction. But in terms of staffing, I mean, yeah, we had to take a lot of folks and put them on furlough. Our entire field sales team, our event sales person, a couple people off of our beer production team, and then pretty much every single part-time bartender. We probably have about 20 of those between the two locations, and all of those folks were, most of all of them have other jobs anyway, and so it's not a huge impact for them. And what we tried to do is, we had a few folks with reduced hours, but we'd give them some hours, working the to-go business so that they could fill in the gaps. So our goal was to try to keep as many people whole as possible, and then the folks that needed to be on furlough, working with them on all the unemployment stuff to make sure that they were getting, what they could. And then now we're actually in the process of calling some people back from furlough. So we're lucky in that way.
Well, that's great. Can you tell me the importance of people like me or people in the community that are buying the beer directly from you, and how that's changed since all those other sources have dried up? What does that mean as far as those people in making a difference?
It's meant literally keeping some people employed. I mean, we don't sell beer in our tap room less cheaply than it would be available at like a package store or a grocery store. The reason for that is that we don't want to ever undercut our retail partners. I mean, they sell the bulk of our beer, and they always will, and so we respect them enough to not ever want to try to undercut them. So
Right.
what that means, though, in terms of the financials, of when somebody buys a 6-pack at our brewery, there's 2 layers of markup that we get to keep that we usually don't. One, the markup that the wholesaler gets, and then the markup that the retailer gets. Because here in Georgia, as you know, there's 3 layers to alcohol: manufacturer, wholesale, and retail. We call it the 3-tier system. And the flip side of us not undercutting the retail price is that, well, when we're selling at retail, we're getting all 3 layers of that profit. And so, there's nothing better for us than selling a 6-pack or a 4-pack right here at the brewery. So when folks come in here, they're not really saving any money. So we really appreciate them making the effort, because every brewery is the worst liquor store in the world because we only sell one brand. So we have the least, selection. On the other hand, we have the deepest selection of our own brand. So if you're interested in us, obviously it's a good experience.
Georgia beer laws changing in the past few years. Now, if those laws were, when you opened, were in effect and hadn't changed,
right,
would that have been the end?
It would have been devastating. So, yeah, the amount of revenue that we brought in, being able to sell beer to go during the COVID crisis, starting really around mid-March, has been sustaining for a lot of our operation. And yeah, before September of 2017, that would have been illegal, and we would not have had a way. And so this crisis would have been doubly devastating to any Georgia brewery than it has been.
And what has been your experience as far as folks coming into the brewery? Like for me, example, early on, you guys were, touchless delivery and knowing that it's safe to come there and buy the beer from you. And I think that was very important for people, like across the board, restaurants, breweries. If they were doing that, I would go there and say, okay, I can safely pick this up. What are people coming and talking to you? How are they feeling about that?
Yeah, it's very important for some people that we're touchless. We don't actually do delivery, but we do curbside pickup where, they'll let us know when they're here and we'll have the beer already ready and go take it out to their trunk. And some people really, really appreciate that and require it. Others feel comfortable to walk inside, and we still keep our distance. We have everybody use hand sanitizer on the way in the door. We pull the beer out of the refrigerator so that people aren't constantly touching the door handles. So it's really funny. The first couple of weeks, we were kind of evolving the protocols almost daily, just as we sort of learned more and gained information. And, we weren't wearing masks at the beginning, as most of us weren't, because the CDC was recommending, don't worry about the mask. But now, we require any of our staff that are facing an actual customer must have a mask on. And every once in a while, I'll be sitting here just doing something else when a customer walks in, and I've got my mask sitting on the table. It's not actually on because I'm just sitting here by myself. And I'll just out of habit get up and head toward the customer, and then I have to turn around and apologize and say, I'm so sorry. Let me get my mask on, So it's all these interesting both social and safety protocols that just evolved so quickly. But I think we've really settled in over the course of April, and we have our process in place now. And many breweries like us are starting to look forward to maybe we can sort of reopen, particularly our patios. We're lucky. We have 2 large outdoor patios. And while we're not opening them yet, we're studying how we can do that and figuring out, is there ways that we can do it in a safe way. There's already a number of Georgia breweries doing it. And so we're working on it, but we want to be, extra careful. But I can tell you that people have said, thank you for being open. Technically, breweries in Georgia, I think most places are considered essential businesses. The reason for that is that we help stock grocery store shelves. And stocking a grocery store shelf, they don't make a distinction between broccoli and Coca-Cola and beer and ice cream. Like, it's all essential. So we're part of that value chain or that supply chain. So I don't consider us heroes like healthcare workers or delivery drivers, restaurant workers, folks like that. But
well, I think to a lot of us beer fans, you are heroes that we can still get. I was talking
it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It's just at this point, and we've talked about it a lot with some of and I know we're going to talk about the beers here, but we're in the smiles business. We're in the happiness business. And in as much as we can help provide some smiles and happiness during a really difficult time, and we take it seriously, obviously, but feel like that's our job.
Yeah, I was talking to a colleague in South Africa, and they're basically under prohibition there, where they can't go out. And I was like, can I send you something?
Right, that doesn't work. No, I mean, we didn't start taking orders for beer pickup on our website until second week of April. And I've already got in our database people that have ordered 4 or 5 and 6 times just in a month, a new kind of regular. So this has become a new habit for people. I mean, I know people's names and faces now that I didn't know before. So in some ways, it's been a great experience to get closer to a number of our customers.
So let's now shift to some of those positive and why the people are coming in to pick some beers is that you have some unique beers and some beers that have gotten some notoriety. So could you touch on, I guess you're calling them pandemic beers?
Yeah, I hesitated to give them any kind of series name, and it's definitely informal, but people started calling them that. So I guess at this point, it just is what it is. So right when this all happened and everything got shut down, we had 2 beers in process, both of which were going to go out in draft form to some cool restaurant and business partners that wanted custom beers. Those projects got, put on hiatus, and so we had to figure out what else to do with the beer. In the case of one of them, there was a special ingredient that was going to get added for the partner. It never got added, so we're able to keep it as more of just a standard lager. And my partner was like, how about this is right as social distancing was becoming a thing, and so we decided to name a beer after the Police song, Don't Stand So Close to Me. And people immediately reacted. And I think that the key element here was trying to figure out a way to add just a bit of levity without looking like we were trying to profiteer from a crisis, which we're definitely not. We're just making the beers we make, but now maybe we can have a little fun with the name in a way that doesn't make light of it in a way that's inappropriate. And I feel like that's incredibly important. So this one seemed to land okay. And so we had that. And then the one that really exploded on got covered in the New York Times, and Seth Meyers featured it on his late night shows, and Newsweek, even TMZ wrote about it. Anyway, one night I sent a text to my partner, and we had this beer with acai berry, and we were like, what do we name this thing? And I was thinking of the Producers Broadway show, and I said, how about Springtime for Fauci? And he came back with Fauci Spring, and so this beer has become I hesitate to say it, a viral hit beer. That's probably a terrible thing to say. I take it back. But anyway, it's become a really big deal for us. We've got a bigger batch we made, then an even bigger batch than that, and it's selling out as quickly as we can make it. So that's Fauci Spring. And then we did a third one. And this one I was inspired by Queen Elizabeth II. Early on in the crisis, she made a speech to the British people. And it was remarkable because aside from her annual Christmas message, it was only the 4th time in the 80 years she's been a public figure that she spoke to the British people. And in it, she gave a beautiful message, but she said that we will meet again. And I thought that was beautiful and inspiring and hopeful. And again, just trying to, if we're going to keep doing these sort of COVID or pandemic themed names, that it needs to have a very light touch and be something that would make people smile. And so hopefully this one did the job as well.
Well, it's funny, the names for the beers of how they evolved and kind of, it's a delicate balance. And I think all 3 of those have really, you're not on the, offensive side, but it's kind of like looking at the positives of these current times that we're in. You have to sort of look at it as a crazy time and, what's going on. And
yeah, totally.
So when all the notoriety came from this one, Fauci Spring, and you saw it on Seth Meyers, what was your reaction? Like and I think I saw your name quoted in the New York Times. How do you put your head around that? Like, you work hard for years on this brewery, and then these beers land on late night talk show.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, the funny thing about that kind of press is you just can't predict it. I mean, there's no formula to getting that. So when it happens, it's just like, our emergency drinking beer that we came out with a few years ago, and that one got a lot of press because it was a great label, great idea, but it was more of a slow rolling. There was no event around it. Whereas this one's very topical and of the moment. And I don't know, clearly you could interpret it, though I don't, as some kind of quasi-political statement, and maybe that's where some of the extra energy from certain quarters came. I definitely don't think of it that way. thought it was a fun name. I think Dr. Fauci is adding value to the conversation overall, and just thought a little shout out to him might be well received. And that's as far as it goes for us.
Have you heard
The
anything
background
from
noise
him?
too loud now?
It's okay.
Okay.
You're at a brewery, it's fine. Have you heard from him or have thought of sending any of his beer to him
We
or any of
haven't,
his off?
and a couple people have told us they were going to be able to get the beer to him, and I don't know if that's actually happened yet. There's so much press on it, I can't imagine he hasn't heard of it, but he's also quite busy, so.
Right, yeah, he has a lot to do.
But we're in Atlanta, obviously, and there's a lot of CDC folks here, and there's definitely a couple that have said, oh yeah, we're going to make sure he gets the beer.
No, that's great. So other than these beers, what else? I think you've done some hand sanitizer and you're sending beer to like doctors and medical
We did a few
professionals.
things. Yeah. Well, first off, early on in the crisis, since we're bringing people back now, we're not doing it anymore, but we put a special price on some of our cases of beer and made them only $30 and used that to raise money for some of our staff that were not able to get unemployment, but were also were furloughed, so they were really taking it on the chin. And we gave a lot of that money directly to them, and so there was 4 or 5 people that got a few paychecks that wouldn't have otherwise, and so that was a really cool thing. And then, yeah, we've started doing hand sanitizer. We have these little 2-ounce bottles that we make available at both of our locations. No purchase required. If you just want to come get 2 ounces of sanitizer, come and get it. A lot of people, get it with their order for beer. And then we've been able to do that in bulk for a number of companies and individuals at well below market price. And then, yeah, this week we launched Hero Beer, and there's a big hospital near us called Emory Decatur Hospital, and they've got a large emergency department that's doing a lot of COVID work. And so we got in touch with them and said, hey, what if we sold some 6-packs on our website, and we discounted those as well, not taking as much money for that. And then we'll compile all this beer and make it available to your emergency department staffers. It's just a thank you from the community. So we're seeing people come on our site now and order those 6-packs, and we'll just compile those up. And all those emergency department workers taking that risk every day, they're gonna get 6-packs given to them by the community.
So Georgia is technically, I guess, open. Could you be open now if you decided it was safe?
Yeah, we could be. The funny thing is you have this weird decision matrix that's new. You got to think about safety. You got to think about your own business. You got to think about what's actually legal and permitted and how you go about that. And then really, what is the community saying is okay and safe for them? Just because we're allowed to do something doesn't mean we should. And we're listening very, very closely to our community. We have a lot of rules that the state has provided. And so, we're not really open other than this to-go model we're doing. Our locations have different needs and constraints. So, we're kind of working through the processes there. I think there'll be a phase in which our patios open because they're wide open, they're outdoors, we can spread people out. I think there's a comfort level maybe that the community would accept with that, but we're even not 100% sure when that can happen. But we're getting ready for it, and we're planning, and we're figuring out processes and working with our staff. And frankly, our staff, we're not going to put anybody that works for us in a position that makes them uncomfortable. And we're going to make sure they're provided with everything that they need. So it's an unbelievably complicated decision to do something as simple as say, yes, you can come get a pint of beer from us.
And do you think, is that adding more pressure to people like you that are small business owners that are saying, okay, it's sort of now up to us to navigate this? Or what's your feeling on that?
And you're in the beer world, you're a beer fan, you know how this works, that breweries on social media are held to an unbelievably high standard for our behavior and really every single thing that we do. And it comes from the fact that beer fans really love and care for what we do. They have passion for our product. So but we're so grateful for that. Like, that's why they come out and support us in droves. But at the same time, they hold us to an incredibly high standard. And if they think that we're being cavalier, they rightly will call it out. And they will say, and I've seen some breweries that maybe started a little early with some of their reopening. I've seen people on social media say, well, I'm definitely not going to patronize them anymore. And it's like, wow, but you go to the grocery store, you know, are you going to not patronize Kroger because they stayed open? I don't. So it's an interesting sort of dynamic. Um, so we just feel like we're going to err on the side of caution. We're going to respect our fans, we're going to respect the community, and we're going to respect our staff. And clearly, we're going to respect all the guidelines and regulations. And so it means that, yes, we're sort of on our own to just figure it out based on the calculus of all of those different factors. And, you know, as somebody that's been trained in business and marketing, I've never had to consider this range of factors before. So it's a new and unique, you know, decision-making process.
And you said when things in March happened, it was like a faucet that just turned off.
Yep.
Going forward, it's not just going to turn back on. It's going to be a slow. How far along do you think that will take? And what do you see going forward as your business being back to normal?
Yeah, it depends on which part of the business you're talking about. Like, we have private events that people have at our breweries, like weddings, parties, bar mitzvahs, whatever. And we're seeing people make deposits for events late into the fall and definitely for next year. We're not seeing any of that for the summer. Our draft beer business, which would rely on restaurants and bars, you know, we know that bars and restaurants are looking at ways to reopen. Some of them are open. So I think that's going to come back at a trickle and slowly increase. Who knows if it ever even gets back to where it was. I've told our team that focuses on that part of the business that expect month 1 and 2 to be in the 10% range of what it used to be. Maybe that's even optimistic. I don't know. And then maybe it slowly goes up from there. As far as the tap rooms and visiting our breweries, I feel like that's not going to be a faucet that turns back on completely, but that'll sharply go up because we know there's just a demand for places to go and things to do. And breweries may be among the key things you actually can do because, you know, if on a Saturday you were going to either be at the stadium for the soccer game or maybe hanging out at a brewery, well, we know the stadium for a soccer game or a baseball game isn't coming back for fans probably at all in 2020. So breweries may, in fact, be the kind of place you can go and hang out and have fun in a safe way that is maybe a little ahead of other types of things. So all that's just spitballing. I don't really know.
Have you seen any increase from any restaurants or bars that have opened? Is that starting to, or you haven't felt that yet?
Not enough that we'd be able to tell yet.
Yeah.
And besides, most of them probably were sitting on some inventory from the day when they had to suddenly shut their doors. So I don't know yet about when we'll start to see any volume from that.
And you mentioned kegs earlier. How many kegs are you dumping kegs, or what's the deal there? Is there any way to
figuring out some ways to convert? Some of them are fresh, and there's a process you can convert them into can inventory. So on a very limited basis, we're doing a little bit of that. There's definitely going to be some beer dumped. You know, at our tap rooms, I mean, the kegs that are on, like, I'm probably having a couple extra. I don't usually drink from our taps because that's sellable inventory. But I'm probably doing a little more of that than I used to because it's not like we're going to be able to sell it anytime soon. So I don't know. And then all the beer that's sitting out at wholesalers, clearly there's going to be some conversations there. So that's a sticky wicket. And I think those conversations between all three tiers of the alcohol system are just really getting started.
So what are your plans going forward now? I think you mentioned that you had some other beers in the pipeline.
Yeah, I can screen share with you and show you a couple if you want to see.
Yeah.
So coming out next week, this one is called This Ain't No Party, This Ain't No Disco. So that's from the old Talking Heads song, Life During Wartime. So that's one fun one. And then we got another one in the era of not being able to travel. We've got Tropical Staycation. So this is a double IPA. You'll probably like this one.
Oh yeah, looks right up my alley.
So those are two that we've got coming. There's one I don't have the label for yet. That's called appropriately for this call, Zoom Fatigue. again, a bit of empathy.
Yeah.
We understand what your life is like right now. Hopefully that's what these get interpreted as.
Well, that's awesome. I think that's all I had.
Great.
Is there anything else you want to add or want to get people to know about Wild Heaven?
I mean, not really. I mean, if you don't know, we make emergency drinking beer. You can find that almost anywhere. But I would more say, thank you to all those people that have been actively out supporting their local brewery. Your breweries tend to be very community oriented. We do lots of charity, lots of donations, lots of community support. And so to feel that coming back in our direction during this time is, I know, been very meaningful to not just our brewery, but to others. So if somebody's a beer fan and hasn't had a chance to visit their local brewery to pick up some beer during the crisis, they should hopefully take a chance to do it.
Well, it definitely makes a difference, and it keeps people like you in business, and you be able to pay some employees and be there when we can all share a pint. And I hope to do that. I hope to do that with you. I hope to do that with you very soon at your brewery. So, well, thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you, Greg.
And
appreciate it.
Hope your family remains safe, and you as well.
Likewise.
And I'll probably see you this weekend or next to pick up another case.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, man, thanks.